Hey, Cynthia.
Hey, what's up, Denise? I
Long time no see.
know, right?
This is probably the most you've ever seen me in like a day.
It is, and I've been enjoying every single moment of
I
it.
am so glad because I'd say the
Ooh,
same thing about you.
and I'm
So,
enjoying seeing all the chat
yes.
activity.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Really excited about our next conversation. But before we get started, Cynthia.
Oh, I have the great privilege to announce that we are going to be having another raffle, but sit tight. We're not quite ready yet to accept the raffle entries, but we will be raffling off a special prize at the end of this session. So look out for the link to enter. In fact, we will post that link right at the end of this session, and then we will announce the winner. So one more raffle left today.
Yay, I'm super excited. And the raffle will have as a hint something to do with something we did, an activity or a session we had today. But
Oh,
with that, and Cynthia, you still cannot enter the raffle, just so you know.
not right.
Just setting
Inclusion.
expectations.
I just include. What happened to this inclusion love? I mean, come on
But
now.
Cynthia, you know the love for you is overflowing.
Uh,
So
well, I see it's overflowing from Kai. Kai says, I need a dose of Denise and Cynthia on the red. What's up?
thank you, Kai. We appreciate it. Okay, so just to get us started, I'm really excited about this panel. And given the conversations that we've had already over the past day or so, and for those who came to our workshops, one of the biggest things that I'm super excited about in regards to the where things are going is like what does it mean to compensate, reward, recognize leaders? Some companies have been doing it longer than others, like well fewer at the beginning of the past 2 years, but now it's a growing conversation and companies are starting to define what does compensation look like, how are you rewarding and recognizing your ERGs, and what's included in all of that. So I'm really excited about this upcoming panel that will be moderated by Amy, who leads diversity, equity, and inclusion at Clever, and an amazing panelists that will be including Meredith at LinkedIn, Thushi at Culture Amp, and Jesse at Upwork. So I'm really excited to hand things over to Amy. And at the end of this, I look forward to seeing you all back here as we kind of wrap up and discuss the summit with you all. So with that, Amy, I'm going to kick it off to you to lead an amazing conversation. I know the chat and the people here are ready.
I know, I can feel it. Thanks, Denise. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And huge shout out to 5 to 9 for bringing us all together today. I'm really looking forward to a rich conversation on how we create value for our ERG leaders and members who are really doing some very meaningful work every single day. And so just to give you a preview of some of the things we're going to be covering. So we'll talk about framing up the value of this work to a variety of stakeholders. We'll talk about setting leaders and members up for success. And yes, we will get to talking about compensation for ERG leads transparently. As Denise mentioned, I'm Amy Nin. I use she, her pronouns, and I lead diversity, equity, and inclusion at Clever. I'll be the moderator for today, and I will kick it over to our amazing panelists. And so would love for each of you all to give us an introduction of your background and an interesting fact that you'd like everyone to know about you. So I'll go ahead and start with Meredith.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Morales. I'm sick. That is not my fun fact for today, but I'm happy to be here. I've been in the diversity, inclusion, and belonging field for over a decade, and I have the pleasure of leading diversity talent strategy from a talent development standpoint of our ERGs at LinkedIn. So about 3 years ago, LinkedIn created a role on our ERG ecosystem called Reward and Recognition. And I have the pleasure of serving in that role with ERG colleagues on our global diversity, inclusion, and belonging team. I'm based in Chicago, and I feel like my kids have honestly sucked all the fun facts out of me. But if I was going to choose one, when I'm not tied up with them, I really enjoy, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. So anytime there's something to do with like speed or, big adventures, count me in. Glad to be here today.
Awesome. Jesse.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, hey, everybody, my name is Jesse Gutierrez. I sit on the diversity, inclusion, and belonging team at Upwork. and I'm our belonging community manager. So instead of ERGs or employee resource groups, we have Upwork belonging communities. My pronouns are he, him, his. I identify as queer, Hispanic, Latinx, millennial, feminist, social justice advocate, and lifelong learner and unlearner. And there's probably a lot of other things I identify as, but I wanted to be intentional about those today. And I actually started my career in business operations. So I worked in sales, customer experience, and programming and strategy formally, but I was heavily engaged back in the day in launching and leading in ERGs. So I definitely know all the work that goes into those. And that's kind of what helped me pivot into a formal DEI role, which I hold today. So I've held roles of ERG program manager at Uber, Micron Technology, and then recently and currently I am at Upwork, as I just mentioned. And an interesting fact about me, so I love music concerts, shows, and festivals. So the last 2 years, like when we couldn't go to as many, those were pretty tough times for me. But I'm actually going to my 9th Coachella this year, assuming the world does not get worse. So I don't want to tally how much money I've spent on all that, but that's fun. And it's my outlet to just like enjoy life a little bit.
Thanks, Jessie. Thushi.
Great. Thank you. I'm jealous. I'm the Equitable Design Impact Lead at Culture Ramp. I sit on the People and Experience team, and my main focus is managing our ERG programs, handling all of our data and reporting when it comes to EDI data, and then also build programming around disability and accessibility. I'm coming off of writing our global commons and adjustment policy for Culture Ramp, which is you. So I'm really excited to roll that to the company. And I have a background in talent and program operations, and I'm really passionate about helping others find nonlinear paths to career happiness. So I've spent my career help sorts of people pivot their career paths. And a fun fact about me is that I'm from Sri Lanka, and I Nashville, Tennessee, my home. And I'm based here in Texas. So I think most of you are in Chicago, but I'm all alone in Texas.
Thanks everyone for introducing yourself. And I forgot to mention I'm also in Chicago. So yes, I think we are. I think we're all in Chicago, the best city. So put a plug out there for that. Well, I know, working in tech can be extremely demanding. And so to kick us off, would love for you all to speak to the value that ERGs offer that would make someone want to take on this work. And so, I know all of you just have really incredible insights and experiences around what it means to value this work and take on this work. And so Meredith, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So ERG work is incredibly valuable. When you think about coming into, especially in the tech sector, an industry that historically has underrepresentation of groups, historically hasn't really built a culture that is inclusive and understanding of different cultural norms and intersectionality, it can feel alone, right? We can often feel like we're the only. And so with ERG leaders, they, at LinkedIn particularly, they are able to reach and retain and develop our underrepresented talent and create authentic communities, which are centered around the work that they do for the company. You can't do great work if you feel like you don't belong. And so, I just truly admire and am so grateful for all ERG leaders around the globe, because they are the unsung heroes, right? They are the ones that are leading the way so that companies can remain attractive to individuals from underrepresented groups, and not only attend, but also just like feel like they belong and feel like they can grow and they can thrive. And when they're when things are not going right or something's not going right in the world, are the kind of the soundboard for the company, to helping the company do the right thing and understand what's right. And so a lot of gratitude to our ERG leaders who do this work on top of their day jobs.
Yes, absolutely. So much gratitude. There's so much emotional labor that goes into what it means to be an ERG leader, which is, why it's important that we actually create value and want to ensure that people take up this work. Thushi, what would you add to that?
I would just piggyback off of attracting talent, and then developing your members not only professionally, but I think there is a personal coaching that happens in ERGs within the member community, and then you're also fostering an inclusive community not only with the groups but also externally within the company and the community. It's also they're just playing a huge role, and you know, we get to it, but we need to pay our ERG leaders. So we'll pass it off to Jesse to add more.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So like, I'll be transparent, like this work is so demanding. As I mentioned before, I've been an ERG leader. So I've been in those positions when we were doing the work, and back in the day, like it wasn't as compensated, or it wasn't even talked about to be paying these leaders. So that's tough. And I'm happy that today we have panelists here where we will touch on why we're compensating and how we are. But I also wanted to share some other positives that are associated with leading and also participating in these types of groups. So for the value add for all team members, specifically within this context of the Great Work Awakening as well, like we're at a point where team members are creating these new relationships between themselves and their employer. So there's really like a limitless opportunity for team member, regardless of corporate employee status or freelancer or contract worker, right? So for corporate employees, our UBCs, they really play a critical role in helping our team members with career mapping, with networking, with development. We surveyed our UBC leaders at the end of 2021, and that was like one of the high level key themes was like, if we were not in a UBC as a member, as a leader, they wouldn't have met XYZ throughout the organization. So that's huge. For contract workers specifically though, I would say this is a population that is often excluded from these types of opportunities. But at Upwork, we're really intentional about centering, again, belonging for all team members, regardless of this classification. So how do we do this? So the DIBS team, so myself, I partner very closely with our hybrid workforce solutions team and legal, of course, to ideate on different efforts and opportunities that are relevant and meaningful for our hybrid workers, because we know that what is relevant for one population may not be relevant for another. So for example, we have hybrid worker Slack channels where essentially this is a space that all of our hybrid workers can come together, socialize, connect, and especially given this new like remote world setting that we're in, I think that's super powerful and a super meaningful way for others to get to know one another. So just wanted to touch on those items too.
No, I love that. And I love that you're talking about what it means to work in today's context, right? Like we are going through a global pandemic. Remote work is now a thing, and it wasn't before. And I think it kind of speaks to almost the evolution of work almost. And with the evolution of work, you know, has come kind of the evolution of ERGs, right? I mean, we went through a racial reckoning in 2020. There was a lot that's happened in our world over the last couple of years. And so I'm really curious to talk about the moment that we find ourselves in, right? You know, the conversation around ERGs are seeing an evolution right now. And so would love for you all to speak to the evolution of your ERGs and your organization that has led up to this moment around really thinking about different compensation and reward structures. So I know all of you have really just super insightful things to say about this, but Dushi, I'll kick it off to you first.
Thank you. So at ERG, at Culture Ramp, all ERGs started as a volunteer-led effort and a grassroots effort similar to other companies. And historically, ERGs were designed to benefit marginalized groups and created a burden with marginalized groups as well. So we are trying to build an anti-racist company. So if we're going to do that, we have to walk the talk. And are we truly building an anti-racist company if we're not compensating our marginalized for doing free labor for us, free import for us? So in addition to the philosophical reasoning, we also formalized our ERG group. So it comes with a governance model, there's expectations, meetings, and development opportunities. So how, if we want ERG leaders accountable to the things that they're going to do for their communities, we need to compensate them. That's the evolution at culture, from volunteer led to formalization to recognizing that there's this gap that we're not filling, and we're undermining our EDI efforts if we're not paying our ERG leaders.
Thanks. Yes, absolutely. To what it means when you commit to being an anti-racist organization, right? And to not pay says a lot about your commitment as an organization to being anti-racist. And so, Jesse, I know you all at Upwork also went through an evolution and process. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. So regarding the evolution, when I joined Upwork, it was January 2021. One of the first things I worked on and accomplished was rebranding and reimagining, as I mentioned before, our employee resource groups into Upwork belonging communities. So we know that language matters, and we know that the name itself, ERG, was not inclusive of team members that are technically not employees. So that was some of the impetus for creating or updating this name, right? We wanted to ensure that all team members are included and feel that they belong within these communities. But it was also more than a name change. So as I mentioned before, this ignited a strategic partnership between our diversity, inclusion, belonging team, legal, hybrid workforce solutions. And with that partnership, we've developed a framework where we have a clear way of defining efforts that are meaningful and relevant depending on the audience, right? So maybe something that would be relevant to employees that touches on employee benefits, that's not going to apply to our contract population, for example. So wanted to touch on that, and there's just been a huge amount of progress just within the last year. And this year we're looking to do a lot more, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later too. But regarding leadership buy-in, I think this is what a lot of us have heard as the frozen middle. And every organization I've worked at, there's always a struggle to get buy-in from middle management for these types of groups. So most groups have executive sponsors, and here at Upwork, they serve as our amplifiers of the UBCs, and they support at the highest point possible for the UBC, right? But with regards to that frozen middle, so in 2021, when we restructured our UBCs, we actually created a second sponsor role, which was director level and above. And that was to address that gap, right? So this person can work laterally within the organization to amplify and engage leaders across different business functions, but then also they're working very closely with the chairs of the group. So ensuring that there's still strategic direction and coaching and guidance. And that is part of the evolution here that we didn't have in 2020. So super excited. I think there's a lot of opportunity there still, and we are reiterating on that in 2022. But I do think that has been one of the positives of this evolution that we're kind of going through.
Yes, goodness. I feel like there are so many things that I'm already thinking about in terms of what it means to constantly evolve ERGs and what it means to constantly have an evolving conversation with your company, with your leadership. Meredith, I know LinkedIn went through a pretty public evolution of sorts, so would love to hear about that.
Absolutely. So we took a bold step last summer, and we introduced what we think of as a financial award and recognition program. And so just to take a step back, at LinkedIn, we have around 10 ERGs and over 600 ERG leaders globally. Within that framework, we have a set of executive sponsors, similar to how Jesse was mentioning. So our exec sponsors are Director Plus, and there are 2 Director Plus, oftentimes VPs, who are co-chairs, co-sponsors to support our global co-chairs. LinkedIn recognized that with our evolution, we weren't going to get there if leadership wasn't truly bought in. And so our journey actually started several years ago when we shifted away from a kind of raise your hand and be leader of ERG to more of a really robust recruitment and selection process. And so at LinkedIn, you must apply online. You must have the support of your manager to even pursue this role, and your HRBP. So there's a solidified circle of commitment to invest in this person, because what we didn't want is we didn't want to see someone nail it at their ERG role, and then, not have enough capacity and have their day job impacted, and then they end up on a PIP. So we came together from an HR leadership perspective and made sure that we were all truly in it together. And when we did that, we found that a lot of our ERG leaders, they're naturally, overachievers, high potentials, and you're not seeing individuals that haven't had a track record of being in this space. So it automatically kind of up-leveled our process. And our ERG co-chairs interview with our exec sponsors, with our global DIBS team, in order to be selected. And not everyone is selected, right? It's a very rigorous and competitive program. So having a true governance structure with so many people from lines of businesses supporting this individual was critical. In addition to that, we recognize that, as Jesse mentioned, the frozen middle doesn't always recognize the value and the depth and scope of this work. So if you say something like, hey, Jesse's amazing, I think he should be promoted into this role, he's also an ERG leader of X group. Some leaders may understand that in the business, and others may be like, what am I going to do with that? But if you change the conversation and you help leaders understand that ERG global coaches are very similar to CEOs, these individuals are in companies running small businesses. They are doing strategy, managing budgets, influencing, right? Working on talent development, talent attraction, touching product. It's truly broad. When you think about the different levels of what they're doing and you brand them as CEOs of their ERG, it changes the conversation and it changes the narrative. And automatically, there's a different level of understanding with fewer words of how important the role of that co-chair is. So, putting that kind of rebranding towards our co-chairs was also a big step in the journey. And with that, it can't just be a namesake. We created a program called the CEO ERG Leadership Program. CEO is a play on words. It does stand for, as I mentioned, we view them as CEOs, but it also stands for the values that are being part of an ERG leader, which are collaborate, empower, and own. And so oftentimes, as underrepresented groups, we all know we do not get the access to the networks, the knowledge, and the mentorship of individuals at the C-suite. It's very rare. And so what we did is we rolled out a global program for all 600 of our leads to participate in CEO, and we have 8+ members of our E-staff who are faculty. And they work together with our global DIBS team and our learning and development, talent development team, and we create a robust curriculum where these C-suite individuals leading incredibly large workloads at LinkedIn are taking the time out to provide 60 to 90 minutes of actual content, right? And why this is so powerful is this is not fireside chats, which are great, right? But we come away inspired and often not with the knowledge that C-suite leaders are able to impart on those that are in their circle. So we're able to scale that mentorship of our ERG leaders by teaching on things like business strategy, influence and effective communication, et cetera. These are actual courses. With that, we're giving them the knowledge, we're giving them the network, we have a strong recruitment process and selection process. So that was a natural evolution to, well, of all of this that we're pouring into them, the conversation naturally becomes, how are we recognizing them beyond developing them? How are we saying thank you for doing this work? And so, as I mentioned, last July, we rolled out our Distinguished program, which provides $10,000 each year of a 2-year term to our global co-chairs across all 10 of our ERGs. Then leveling down, as I mentioned, we have 600 leaders. We know ERGs can't be successful without their overall leadership team across the globe. We have a Distinguished program which empowers employees in ERGs to recognize each other. So our E-staff gave us a dedicated pool of funds where ERG leaders can log into an online portal, write a note of recognition, and it comes with a monetary amount that someone can go on and select a gift of their choice. And so we would love to pay all of our ERG leaders $10,000, but while we're not able to do that, we're able to at least do that for our co-chair level and empower and acknowledge and recognize in some form of monetary recognition and award through the Distinguished program of our non-co-chair global ERGs.
Awesome. Well, I mean, in all the knowledge that's being shared here, kind of what I'm hearing, right, is like there is a framing up and a foundation setting that has to happen before we're able to move into really honest and needed and necessary conversations about why compensation is so important. And so, when you all were talking about like what that foundation setting looks like, that's really resonant for me too. I would say our organization at Clever also went through a very, I think, just a really powerful evolution where, I think a lot of our ERG leads were ready to say, we need to be compensated. And there had to be a lot of groundwork laid and a lot of foundation laid before we were able to finally get to that conversation to ultimately make it happen. So I appreciate you all sharing a little bit more about what that evolution and groundwork looked like for you. Speaking of our, we've been talking a lot about ensuring that our ERG leaders are recognized and rewarded and compensated and set up. So, what should ERG leaders be doing to center their members and set them up for success, both within the ERG and in the workplace itself? And so, Jesse, I know you've thought about it from a data perspective, so would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Data. I would say using data to help you drive meaningful and strategic initiatives is super critical. And if you don't, like, depending on the maturity of your groups and the support you have, if you don't have access to like company-wide employee satisfaction data, like you can still conduct a member survey. So I'm talking to the ERG leaders on the call right now. If you have that issue in terms of getting data, like start with member data, and that's a huge positive and win, so that you can see like what you can do for your community in terms of what they want and need. Here at Upwork, we do look at our employee satisfaction data and then compare those scores of our UBC members to the team members who identify with that community. So for example, those in our Black Initiative Network, and we look at that score compared to Black employees, because just because we have Black employees doesn't mean that they're all in the UBC, for example. So we can really look at what opportunities and pockets can we tackle and really partner and leverage the UBC to address those. So I would say that's super helpful. And again, it's using data to drive those actions. Another example I want to share here is, so this year we are creating a new tiered system of efforts so that we have clear drivers for an effort depending on the tier. So for example, tier 1, this would be a larger company-wide effort, or one that focuses on learning and development. So we want to ensure that it is high quality, right? Ensuring that we're adding value for members and for our UBC leaders. For tier 2, so this is a smaller member-specific effort that's really centered on community building and connection. And I would say transparently, this is a gap that we had last year. I think given the context of the new like remote world and so many things being done just behind our Zoom camera, it was very easy to forget about the community building piece. So we're being intentional about that this year. And that is really where our UBCs and the leaders drive a ton of value, because they are the grassroots representatives of these communities, right? So we want to ensure that we create those spaces where people can come together. And then finally, we added a separate tier where it's not necessarily an event or an effort, but we want to still ensure that there's communications kind of spotlighting this moment or this day and spreading that cultural competence and awareness. So those are some new updates that we've made this year. But again, I think that's helped structure and align everything so that we can add the most value for members and for the leaders of these groups too.
Love that. Bushi and Meredith, feel free to hop in and add whatever might come to mind.
Yeah, a lot is coming to mind right now. And the way I coach our ERG leaders is to think about, your members here, they're grow and thrive in their careers at Culture Ramp. So what are you as ERG boards and leaders doing to ensure that your programming is focused around developing your members? And at Culture Ramp, we use our own product, our employee engagement survey, to inform EDI strategies at the people and experience level. So mimic that process for our leaders and dive deep into, what is the employee engagement data saying? What are our inclusion metrics for your demographic specifically? And then we let them go and do additional listening if they need to with their member base, as well as other surveys to inform what they want to work on quarter to a year. And we our surveys every quarters and get to see a little bit of impact, a measurable impact every quarter to see if they need to reevaluate the strategy that they put in place.
Yeah, I love that. So I love both approaches. We are newer in that space. And so the way that we've kicked off is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the incredible Dr. Robert Rodriguez, who also happens to be based in Chicago. But his work is national, is global. And he is an individual that is truly an ERG ecosystem expert. He works with over 200 companies across tech and other private sectors. And he launched a model recognized by Diversity Best Practices as the 4C model. If you haven't heard of it, would highly encourage you to look him up on LinkedIn, look up the 4C model, excuse me, but essentially high level, the 4Cs stand for things like, community, culture, career, and commerce. When you think about it, right, nearly all businesses operate in those 4 buckets. And so when you say to an ERG leader, like, hey, what's your strategy? How are you bringing your members along? How are you developing your leaders? That can be a lot of pressure. And so with the 4C model being very similar to the quadrants that ERGs think about anyway, just with a different name, we adopted the 4C program model. And so with that, Dr. Rodriguez was able to roll out a ERG-wide survey to our entire ecosystem of ERG members and leaders to give us data-driven insights on, things that we had long assumed or wondered about, and now we have the actual data to show us how people are feeling about their own development and their own recognition in their careers and as ERG leaders. Within the 4C model, we encourage our ERG leaders to not try to boil the ocean and do all 4. But, of those 4 quadrants, what resonates with you and your particular ERG brand and what you want to accomplish in the next 1 to 2 years, right? Because at LinkedIn, we believe in fewer things done well. And so selecting one of those 4 quadrants and building your strategy to align to kind of the subtext that goes under one of those 4 quadrants. And as an added benefit, Dr. Rodriguez is a part of our CEO program. He is on the faculty. And so he has provided in-depth coaching to ensure that the ERG coaches are set up for success in how they're thinking about and designing their own growth and development, as well as that for those of their members and their broader leadership community.
Yes, I love that. And what I love about the 4C model is that, to your point, it's kind of like a trickle effect, right? Like it kind of helps to center all folks who are involved in an ERG model. And I did not know that Dr. Rodriguez is based in Chicago. So that is good
Amy,
to know.
can I piggyback off of what
Of
Meredith
course.
just said? Awesome. Thank you. So I love, Meredith, that you called out Dr. Rodriguez. We also work with him here at Upwork. And I wanted to share with everyone on the call today, especially those that are like very early stages in their different communities and groups, that we, for example, at Upwork, we use just 3 of the C's. We don't use the commerce one yet because we knew we were in such early stages. We didn't, as you mentioned, Meredith, want to like boil the ocean. And I also share that because I've also worked in orgs and I've seen a bunch of orgs where sometimes these groups can, I guess, be asked or kind of forced to focus more on the business impact side of things. Of course, this varies depending on your organization. But I bring that up just so that everyone is mindful of really like taking a step back and seeing like what stage of this maturity model are our groups in so that we can best support the ones leading these groups and the members of these groups. So I thought I would be remiss if I didn't share that, but just wanted to jump in there too, Amy.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really important point, right? Like ERGs will go on their own journey and evolution. At Clever, we're 200-person company. Our ERGs are also relatively new. And similarly, we also don't necessarily focus on all parts of the 4C model. Honestly, our ERG leads are really focused on just building community and, trying to build a sense of just really strong community and belonging amongst their groups right now. I see it. So just to plug, please throw your questions into the Q&A. I'm already seeing lots of questions that I think are very juicy that we will get to. But there's one question that I am sure so many people here we're waiting for that I want to get to. And so I want to talk very concretely about compensation for ERG leaders and members. Meredith, you already kicked us off there. You talked very concretely about numbers and what LinkedIn's model looks like. And so to the extent that folks are comfortable, let's talk about money. So for those who, do include financial compensation, would love to hear how much, and also like what factors did you consider to actually land on that particular number? And so Thushi, I'll actually kick it off to you first.
Thank you. So things to consider that when you're thinking about your ERG leaders, I'm thinking about how ERGs do you want the co-chairs or all of the board members. At Culture Amp, we have a board of 1 chair and up to 4 board members because we're ERG. We're trying to have enough members, board members represented in all of our locations. So thinking about those logistics from that feasible within the budget you have for the year for whoever is in the ERGs, and then thinking through the hairy situation around like how is it going to be paid out? Is it a bonus? Is it a stipend? Is it an increase in salary? And considering the tax implication behind that. So pulling in the finance team, pulling in legal. I know I had some conversation people partners around what do we call it because you call something could impact legal implications. In California, if you're adding it to, if you're saying like you're doing this on top of your full-time work, what does that mean? So thinking through that, relying on the resources that you already have internally. Added our article in here. Thanks, Aubrey. It'll go deeper into how to think about paying your ERGs. And at Culture Amp, we have 5 identity-based ERGs and 1 affinity group that's focused around sustainability. And we pay each of our board members $3,000. Each board can have up to 4 members, and 1 chair per ERG, $6,000. And in addition to the board compensation, we also give each ERG $7,500 US to spend on for the year, and then a $2 budget to use for charity matching that their ERG communities may run.
Thank you. Yes. Meredith, I am curious if there's anything you want to add on. I know you shared some things already, but anything else you want to add about LinkedIn's program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was remiss in not mentioning our program started by researching all the great work that companies like Upwork are doing in this space, and just kind of looked at globally how many companies around the globe are recognizing ERG leaders with pay. And so we came up with a short list, and we led this research in partnership with our global compensation team. We then had a conversation on different directions that we could go, right? So when you think about why we're paying them, we like to think about it as financial reward, but for the sake of this conversation, right? Why are we paying them? This is incredible work that you really can't put a dollar amount on. And as we saw in the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, 2021, even that year, different moments in time call on different ERGs. Right. And so, with Floyd, with, anti-Asian movements, with, Trans Lives Matter, like it was just ran the gamut. Right. We've all been through it in the last 2 years. And it's like, how do you put a number on that? And so what we did is we decided we wanted to follow suit with some of the very few players who are paying their ERGs. And I want to applaud those who are. And we wanted to do it in a LinkedIn way, which is when we think about how we're going to, decide who gets the 10,000, we decided to take an equitable approach, right? Because you can't say one ERG did more than the other, and so on and so forth. And so we decided that global co-chairs, as long as they are, in seat and, not on violating any kind of LinkedIn, protocols or rules or anything like that, which doesn't really happen, that they would be eligible for the award. And there's really no other criteria. As long as there's no dereliction of duty, it's a thank you and a recognition for all that they've done. Regarding the numbers, So with the $10,000, we do have 10 ERGs. So each global co-chair gets $10,000 each year of their 2-year term for a total of $20,000. And so when we thought about that for us, and this kind of harkens back to my recruiting days, we kind of thought about, well, you get a job and then the recruiter's like, hey, you get this $5,000 sign-on bonus. And the person's like, oh my God. And then taxes hit. And it's like, oh, what happened to my 5,000? So, when we think about like that perspective, we wanted to make sure that for us at LinkedIn, it didn't feel like a performative gesture, but that we were able to do something within a tax bracket that people would still have enough left over to really feel the love. And so $10,000 doesn't even begin the tip of the iceberg of what this work is worth, but it is what we have scoped for now as a way to say thank you to our 10 global ERG co-chairs. 20 global ERG co-chairs, excuse me.
Awesome. Jesse, what about Upwork?
Yeah, no, I love hearing about how everyone tackles this because there's not much research out there. There is a little bit more now, of course, but it's always great to just share with one another and see how we can all kind of improve the programming and compensation for all of our leaders throughout every org. But at Upwork, so we similarly, of course, we partnered with HR, finance, legal, a bunch of different stakeholders that went into approving this decision and being a part of the process. But in 2020, we did compensate each group's leaders equally. So each leader received a $4K spot bonus for their year of leadership and service. And each leadership team was composed of 5 leaders. So all those leaders were compensated equally, and ensuring that it wasn't just a set group of those total 5 per group. In 2021, though, we did change this structure based off of a lot of feedback. So we restructured the UBC leadership teams. And with that, we had to update our approach to compensation, of course. So we still decided to pay each leader in this role, but we utilized a tiered model where the top tier, the first tier, they received a quarterly cash bonus or spot bonus of $1,750. And then the second tier received $1,500. And then the third received $500. So this was all determined based off of the estimated time spent, but then also in terms of the quality of work that the different leaders were doing, of course. So the chairs, of course, are doing a lot more strategy and really overseeing a whole team. So we felt that tier should be compensated more adequately for the role and the work that they're achieving there. So that's something that we changed in 2021. We're actually reiterating on that again this year. And I don't have any formal numbers to share this year, but I bring that up because I feel like everyone, we shouldn't be afraid to say, okay, that was okay. How can we improve it? Or even just admit like that was the wrong move. That was the wrong decision. It's not equitable. How do we improve that for the following year? So here at Upwork, we're entering what we're calling our Act 2, where we're being given permission to fail, to innovate, to try new things. So it's really great to be on a team where leadership supports, of course, the compensation, the recognition of these different leaders. And it's not as rigid in terms of we've done it this way, we have to keep doing it this way. So I'm just blessed that I get to support our UBC leaders and really hear what they're saying. So from 2021, what worked and what didn't. And we want to improve that for 2022 to ensure that we're equitable in how we're compensating and rewarding. So more to come in 2022, and we will be communicating that out too, but super excited for that.
Yeah, I love the spirit of innovation that I'm kind of hearing across all of these different models, right? Like it's a newer thing to compensate ERG leads, or I would say it's an emerging thing. More companies are, and more companies are continuing to do it. But I think that really speaks to how it's important to implement a model that works best for your company in this current moment in time, given where it is. I see a question in the chat actually about smaller companies and can you do this if you don't have as robust of a structure? And I absolutely believe that you can. I work at a 200-person organization and we compensate our ERG leads $2,250 a year. It's not as much as LinkedIn. It's not as much as some other organizations because we don't have, the same financial resources, but we were able to make the case that similarly, there is deep value in this work, that leaders are that leaders are adding to our company priorities and goals around diversity, equity, and inclusion in really, really just deeply meaningful ways. So yes, Meredith, I see you coming off mute there.
Yeah, I love that question. And I love how you're thinking about that, Amy. It's a great call out that not all companies have the same amount of resources, but this doesn't always have to come down to pay. While I love that LinkedIn is doing this, as well as other companies beyond Proud, some companies just don't have the budget to do this, right? Or they don't have the resourcing. And so another component of our program that I think folks can consider who do have more constrained budgets is the value of recognition from the top down. So another level of our distinguished program outside of the $10K a year, then we have that online portal, which provides monetary financial awards. We also have this last layer, which I think is probably the most rewarding. And this is where we ask our executive sponsors to make sure that they are incorporating feedback into each performance cycle, mid-year, annual review, and serving as career advocates in between cycles to make sure you form a relationship with that person's manager. Help, convey the different skills that that person is building that maybe the manager doesn't know. And the beauty of this system is that when you put this kind of feedback into a formal review, it lives in the system, right? It lives in our ATS, which is different than an email, which is like a moment in time and can get lost. And when it's part of your review, it tells the full story of what you're bringing, not just half of the story of what you're doing for your core job, but the full story of all the skills you're developing. And when you have that full story and you have the support and recognition of a VP plus leader saying, this person is evolving and can go to the next level, you now have created an opportunity for that ERG leader individual to ramp their internal mobility opportunities, to accelerate their opportunity to be promoted and to move forward to other parts of the organization. So highly, highly recommend that if there's one thing you can do, really consider thinking about how you can support each other as an ERG leadership community by making sure you are getting the feedback into your review cycles where it will live with that employee for the life of their career versus emails, again, which can get overlooked.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate the person who just shared in the chat that their question on inequities was answered via the tiered model. I know we are coming up to time and I think we might get kicked off the stage. And so I just want to close just with huge thank you and want to open it up to all of our panelists here if they have any closing thoughts before we transition.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Amy. Yeah, so I kind of touched on it in my last response, but just for everyone to try and find some comfort in embracing failure, because from failure, we can learn and course correct, and then, of course, innovate and reiterate improvements for whatever we're working on. I recently heard someone share a statement along the lines of, if you aren't failing, you're not reaching high enough. And that really resonated with me, not just regards to like my professional work at Upwork, my professional role at Upwork, but personally as well. And what I took from that was that it's okay to fail. And when we step out of these comfort zones and try new things, it's inevitable that we're going to fail. And I'm just like owning that and trying to embrace that. And once you do accept that, these new opportunities will arise. So that's my mentality as well as I support these groups, knowing that we're not always going to get it right on the first time, but the intent is there. And if we're willing to learn and grow and course correct, like there's just so much opportunity.
I can jump in there. I feel that, Jesse, I'm always like thinking about anticipating, what did I not do right? And what do I need to be prepping for the meeting, or what's the question that's going to come from my ear that I need to versus an answer. I think one thing that I wanted to leave everyone with is thinking, I'm speaking directly to companies that are small that cannot pay, is picking back of what Meredith was saying, just the work that you're doing is at work. So it should count in your performance. But even if folks are not writing, I have to write it in your self-reflection about the work that you're doing. Think about the value that you're adding to the company, and at least put that in your self-reflections. And companies, thinking out, if it's not cash compensation, are you giving them access to rooms that they're not yet, in entering right now. So access to leadership, AMAs with your executives. They present in all hands, at Culture Ramp, we call them situation rooms. So can you give them access to places that they're not in right now? Thinking beyond just cash comp.
I would +1 to everything that was said, and I'm going to go in a different direction because I think Thashi and Jesse just did a phenomenal job covering kind of these last gems of wisdom. I'll go on record and I say I think too often we get so caught up in our own companies and like what we're doing and what's not going right, and we wait for opportunities like these incredible tech summits to come together and hear from others of what they're doing. There's an opportunity for tech companies to work more closely together, reach across the aisle, find out what each other is doing, find out how you push the business case forward. And by doing that, by reaching across the aisle and just learning more day-to-day practices, we're going to advance this work faster. There's no point in kind of, starting the wheel from the beginning. I have found incredible value in attending amazing conferences like these, but also just reaching out on LinkedIn and finding other folks that are in this, they're ERG leaders or leading ERG oversight, and having conversations with them about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, those conversations, those one-to-one moments just can be so insightful. And when you find a way to even partner together on what you might do, that just adds additional power. So just want to encourage people to continue this work, but also don't feel like you're in it alone.
That is so true. We are all not in it alone. I think that's some great words of wisdom to end on. I want to thank you to our panelists for just an awesome conversation, for sharing transparently a lot of insights and takeaways for our folks to hear. Thank you all to folks who attended. Hopefully this was helpful. Remember, it's an evolving, ongoing conversation. And we're here as resources as your company engages in conversations around what compensation, reward, recognition looks like, whether it's financial or not. So thank you, everyone. And
Hello.
I'll pass it back to Denise.
Oh, hello, Amy. This was such a great panel. And also, Meredith, I love how you ended the conversation around kind of the importance of bringing this work together and sharing and connecting and just what's everyone doing. So I hope that everyone who was in the audience today got so many tips and also resources and plans for how they're going to move this work forward within their organizations. And we can start compensating, rewarding, and recognizing the really very real hard work that ERG leaders are doing for their organizations every day. So I really appreciate the panel and everything that Upward, Culture Amp, Clever, and LinkedIn just shared around that work. And that's why the Tech ERG Summit was started, to bring all these people together. Cynthia has already been doing this work for quite some time with Cape Force Center and Culture, our collective, as well as diversity advocates. And I'm just so lucky, Cynthia, to be partnering with you and bringing this work together.
We are a force to be reckoned with. It is my privilege and my pleasure to be able to partner with you. And Denise, I'm really excited about our next raffle coming up. You want to tell folks about that?
Yes. So the next raffle is a 1-year subscription to the Shine app. The 2 sessions we've had around mental health and ERGs and just as personal people in general have really inspired me to share an app that I personally love, the Shine app. It's a meditation app, has a lot of different things that I've loved and supported me as a founder. So I am thinking, I thought it would be a really great raffle to put out. And also, just so everyone knows, all the raffles that we've put out the past couple of days, we're not getting paid for them. They're not ads for some of these companies. We just love the work that, I just have found some of these to be helpful to me. And as we were thinking about raffles for the audience, I was like, hey, let's share what we love with everyone else. So
wait, I can't win one of these prizes and I can't get a kickback from the company?
Cynthia,
what kind of operation are we running here?
Cynthia, come on. We've talked about this for like 2 days. You already know the answer. As we kind of pass over to thanking everyone, though, because this work is not just the people you've seen up stage here, myself and Cynthia. There's just so many people who have been amazing in bringing this together. And I kind of told Trey on production that I'll be bringing them up on stage. So I hope they're ready. And then we'll be announcing the raffle right after we say thank you to all these people and just do a quick toast to them, the audience, and the speakers, the amazing workshop leaders that have done the work to bring this summit together over the past 3 days. So with that, I don't know if the tech team is ready to be on FaceTime. Well, for the audience to meet y'all and say thank you.
These are the folks who are operating behind
Yes.
the scenes. All right, come on up, y'all. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
These are our amazing humans, and not on the stage there are a few other people, including Megan Boots, who's been so amazing with the emails and marketing, making sure that you all knew the conference was happening. We've had our intern on marketing Lasya, who's also been amazing on this work, and obviously the people on stage right now, including Kathia, who's made sure y'all know about the raffles and enter them, and then make sure they choose the winner of that raffle. We have Anto, Joe, and then Trey, who's been doing such an amazing job on the production side of things. Like Trey, your run of show and all of the amazing work that you've done to move this summit forward on the back end has been really amazing. Trey and I actually went to college together. And he is currently the founder and CEO of his own production company. So it's really amazing just, being like, Trey, we're putting on the summit again. I would love to work with you. And obviously his amazing work has been shown over the past 3 days. And
so thank you very much, Trey.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
And it's host.
And, well, hold up. I just want to also just reiterate my look, you're going to give Trey the shout out he deserves, and he definitely does, but you're not going to let me slip without giving my team the shout out too. So Joe and Anto and Kathia and Cynthia D, who's not on the call now, big thanks to all of you, and Megan Boots, so instrumental, important in making this happen. So everybody, Trey, Kathia, Anto, Joe, Denise, Cynthia D, and Megan Boots, you all are the best. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And then also shout out to everybody who participated in this conference. You all are the ones who made this a complete success from my perspective. So we appreciate your ongoing engagement. We're hopeful that the feedback is reflective of what I've seen in the chat, because if that is the case, I can see real value here, and it looks like maybe we'll be back next year. We hope so.
Yeah.
Denise, you want to lead us in a toast?
Just, cheers and thank you to everyone. Super appreciate just the amazing things that have happened the past couple of days. I already was drinking my toast, Cynthia, so I'm going to take another sip.
Yeah, well, this is unfortunately just Diet Canada Dry. So.
Oh, mine too.
Mm-hmm.
Mine too.
All right, so what do we have up next in terms of
so we're announcing the raffle.
The raffle.
Yeah, the raffle. We gotta give someone some mental health energy for at least a year of this subscription.
So important.
So yes, and we have a winner. I really me and names, especially because my name is gotten wrong all the time. Obviously it's spelled like Denise, but it's Denise. I'm just going to put the winner in the chat right now for this raffle. So our winner is in the chat, and we'll soon, there it is on our banner over there. One of the most amazing things that, we can do here. And also, so Cynthia, what are your thoughts about potentially popping into the community room and saying thank you to everyone? Or seeing people want to chat.
I really hope that I'm able to connect with folks in the community room. It's been wonderful seeing all the activity in the chat, but I would also love to be able to get a little bit more personal FaceTime.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I'm totally down.
Yeah, and also before we do that, we have a video that's gonna just, Trey has a surprise for us actually. So I'm gonna cue Trey to put that up because he didn't tell me what it was. So I am looking forward to seeing this video. If everyone wants to stay here, after this video plays, we'll head over to the community room where you don't have to be on video, but you can also, take off your audio. But if you are on the stage, we may call on you to tell us just, your thoughts on the summit, any other comments that you have. So we're excited to see everyone in that. But Trey, let's see what you've been working on. I'm really excited.
Yay.
Welcome to our second annual Tech ERG Summit. We're excited to have everyone here.
I'm Yvonne Hutchinson, CEO and founder of ReadySet. Also, I'm trying to perfect my biscuit recipe. That's my fun fact about myself.
So some people just need to allow me to reintroduce myself. These are our standards. These are our values. This is what we really say is important in order to come back to the office and be an active member of the community.
Welcome today. How are we feeling?
You know, it's giving 8 out of 10, so I'm excited.
So can we get to 10 out of 10 by the end of this panel?
Maybe.
Dosti, our South Asian population, they individually did their videos of them dancing and sharing what they do with their families, again, for the world to see. And so I think it was just so inspiring to see how we can shift at the drop of a hat and still stay resilient through these times.
I think companies really need to be careful of we have ERGs, so we're done, we'll let them do everything. No. What companies need to do is put people in those seats where it is their everyday job. And then those people work with the ERGs, and it's a partnership. It's okay, we trust that the DIB team, we trust that our HR team, we trust that the L&D teams got us.
You get a book, you get a book.
You get a book, you get a book. I love that. Do I get a book?
Yes.
And so it's a lot less about the chips and salsa and a lot more about I feel like I owe it to our members to really deliver results to them to make their lives better, to advocate for them in tricky situations where they're living under systematic oppression. And that's really, for me, the point of an ERG.
I also just want to flag that
Welcome to our second annual Tech ERG Summit. We're excited to have everyone here.
I'm Yvonne Hutchinson, CEO and founder of ReadySet. Also, I'm trying to perfect my biscuit recipe. That's my fun fact about myself.
So some people just need to allow me to reintroduce myself. These are our standards. These are our values. This is what we really say is important in order to come back to the office and be an active member of the community.
Welcome today. How are we feeling?
You know, it's giving 8 out of 10, so I'm excited.
So can we get to 10 out of 10 by the end of this panel?
Maybe.
Dosti, our South Asian population, they individually